us all together. Lord, we gather in your name as children of a sovereign God. Forever we proclaim, to God be all glory.
Well, good morning. How you doing? It is Thursday, April the 17th, 2025. Welcome to episode 292 of The Thinking Theologian as we continue our journey through the scriptures. So today we read 1 Kings chapter 12 through 14. The title of today is The Wisdom of the Young Can Lead to Destruction. The focal scriptures in 1 Kings 12:8, and this is what it says. But he rejected the advice of the elders who had advised him and consulted with the young men who had grown up with him and attended him. And so there's a very distinct difference here of who he did listen to, who he didn't listen to. And so it's painful to watch people ignore sound advice. It is one of the worst things to see, especially when you see somebody give really good advice, usually from an older person who's been there, either experienced what they're going through personally, know a lot, have seen a lot, or just an older person who's giving really good heartfelt advice, and somebody just be like, I'm doing what I want to do anyway. It's just never a good thing. It's almost tragic to watch. It's even more heartbreaking to watch the outcome of bad advice come to fruition, especially when the person says, look, if you go down this path, these are things that are going to happen. The person's like, I want to do it my own way anyway. And they don't learn from other people. And so I've seen this happen many times in my life. Even a few times, I was the person that ignored wisdom from elders and listened to other people who were not wise. Why? Because they told me what I wanted to hear. That's why most people don't listen to sound advice, is that you hear something you don't want to hear. You're like, no, I want to listen to somebody who's going to kind of do what I want to do. That's what happens. I got confirmation, so I can go ahead with it. It doesn't end up well. Now, both times in my personal life, it led to heartache. When these things happen, I didn't listen to wise counsel. So today's reading, we see Solomon's son get advice from two different groups. One group told him to be kind to the group who came to honor him. They were like, look, we know we were opponents of your father, but we're coming here to honor you. We want to be treated well. We'll do whatever you ask us to do. And Solomon thought, this would be a good idea, but he asked for wisdom from two different groups. By doing so, he would win them over and show mercy by allowing them to not be under the labor they were before. And so his young friends encouraged him to be even harsher than his father was with this group. The older group said, look, you're going to win somebody over if you do this the right way. Now the king took the harsh route. He listened to the younger group. He didn't listen to the older group. So he took the harsher route. He treated them worse than his father treated this group. The advice was bad, and it led to pain for the king and the people who humbled themselves. Basically, they had a bad reputation. It also demonstrated very poor leadership. You have somebody who comes and throws themselves on you, even if they made mistakes. Instead of separating from the emotion of it and things that were going on, you listen to what these people say, and you create a bigger problem, because now other people are looking and going, why am I going to come to the king and try to give honor if he's going to treat me worse than he did before? Leadership lesson 101 right there. So the takeaway from today is to be very careful who you take advice from in your life, especially leadership advice. Everybody has opinions, especially young people. And most young people have never experienced hardly anything to give any good advice at all. So I've learned that most people give advice off of what they think is best for them as an individual, not off of what is best for everyone. And so usually you'll ask somebody for advice who or somebody who's involved in a situation to make sure you're working through things. But what I've learned is a lot of people make those decisions based off how is this going to benefit me or the group, and not benefit everyone, even if that means it's a more difficult decision. Just an observation I've seen, because most people make decisions based off of emotions and off of self-preservation, instead of thinking, does this decision benefit everyone, even if it may come at a detriment now, in the long run is going to be a bigger benefit. Most people don't think that way. Now, good leaders do, but most people don't think that way. And so They give them advice what's going to be best for them. So this is what happens in a situation. The king could have easily shown mercy and grace. He could have gotten allies that were once enemies. Instead, he showed cruelty, and he chose cruelty. He showed what happens when a leader has suffered through tragedy. He just shows awful leadership. So my encouragement for you today is to surround yourself with people who will give godly wisdom, people who see the big picture and not a selfish agenda. I was once around a leader who made decisions on what was best for them and not the organization. Every decision he made was based off of what was best for them and how it looked. Even short-term or long-term, they made decisions that way, and it always hurt the entire organization. And so in meetings, they would talk about others in horrible ways. Then leave the meeting and butter that person up so they could accomplish the agenda they wanted. So what would happen is I'll be in a meeting with this individual, and they would just bad mouth people horribly about how sorry they were, this. They would, say just terrible things about them. And then as soon as we would leave the meeting, this individual would find the same people he was talking about, put his arm around them, and treat them in a completely different light of how he talked about them and treated them in a meeting, all because these individuals gave him something and he could benefit from what was going on. And some people know this, and some people knew how this person was, but it was one of the craziest situations I've ever seen. And so it's just something to be aware of how that goes, and people see that, people are aware of it. And so this person didn't see the big picture. They were just making decisions based off of what benefited them in the moment, or even short term, not how it benefited everybody, especially the people that were involved. And so, so it was about personal survival and not about the health of the organization. The person did this because they wanted personal survival, because they had to build those relationships to keep their job safe, instead of understanding if they disagreed or how they really felt about the person. They never were honest, because they knew if they approached it the proper way and approached it in an honest fashion, that people would get rid of them if people really knew how he really felt. Just a horrible leadership example. But again, it's all about self-preservation and not about true leadership. And so they encouraged others to lead the same way. And so this person that did this encouraged other people to do that. They encouraged gossip and talking about people. Because the old saying goes, and it's very true, if a person will talk to you about someone, they will talk to you about someone else. And this person would always do that. They would always run their mouth about people, talk to them about them horribly, then go to them and say one thing, then turn right around and talk about other people. And in this leadership position, this person should not have been doing that for many reasons. It's bad to do it anyway, especially in this position this person was in. And so, they encourage other people to do this. And so they actually encourage people, hey, they didn't come out outright and say it, but it's like, what I say doesn't matter. But it was more of, watch what I do to get my way, even though I'm talking bad about this person, because I need them to do something for me. And that was his leadership style. And so you even try to encourage people to do that, even though they weren't outright. And that advice wasn't followed by me or other people that witnessed it and saw it. And I've seen how good leaders treat others and make decisions, and that is not the way. I had a privilege of being around great leaders and seeing how they treat people, and they're always genuine and honest with what's going on, and they always know they follow good wisdom from others. Sorry. So be careful who gives you advice. Listen to sound advice, and not to put people, and not to people who tell you what you want to hear. Have people around you that are going to be honest with you, not just yes men. Good leadership means concessions, and it means being flexible. If you make a decision as a leader, you should not just come away being extremely happy all the time, unless it's a biblical issue. But sometimes you have to give concessions to get things you need, because not everyone's going to agree with everything 100% realistic. And so the only hard stance we need to take are biblical ones that are clear. So when you're leading, we need to take advice from people who are older than us, not just older, but also have more experience. They could be younger. They just may have more life experience in a certain situation where they can lead and guide us where we need to be. And so we need to learn from that and not make mistakes the way Solomon's son did here, by listening to his friends say, hey, be harsher, instead of giving grace and mercy and gaining an ally. And so it's just something to be aware of. So tomorrow, we're going to be in 1 Kings 15 to 17. Thank you for being with us today. Have a